Hello and welcome. Today, we are diving headfirst into the tiny, incredible world of the eukaryotic cell. You know, the fundamental building block of you, of me, of every complex living thing on the planet. We're going to take a tour of two very special cellular cities, the plant cell and the animal cell. So if you're studying for GCSE Biology, this is going to be your essential guide to really nail this topic. So here's our game plan. We'll start with a quick welcome to the cell. Then we'll check out the essential bits and pieces that you'll find in both plant and animal cells. After that, we'll put them side by side, look at what makes each one unique, and this is the important part. Figure out why these differences are such a big deal.
All right, let's get right into it. Before we can start comparing and contrasting, we need to get our heads around a really basic question. What even is a cell?
Just think about that for a moment. If you had to build something alive from the ground up, what's the smallest, most basic unit you could possibly make that has all the properties of life? Well, that's it, right? The answer is the cell. It's the ultimate biological blueprint. Now, to help us understand all the different parts we're about to see, we're going to use an analogy. I want you to imagine every single cell is like a tiny, bustling city. It's got everything it needs to survive: a government, border control, power plants, factories, the whole shebang. This cell city idea is going to be our map for this tour. So just like any city needs roads, power, and some kind of leadership, every cell needs some basic infrastructure. Let's kick things off by looking at the key parts, the organelles, which are like tiny organs that you'll find in both plant and animal cells. First up, the big boss, the nucleus. This is a pretty large structure, and its main job is to hold the cell's DNA. And that DNA, well, that's the genetic code. It's the master instruction manual for absolutely everything the cell does, from how it grows to when it divides. So in our cell's city, the nucleus is City Hall. It's the central office where the master plans, the DNA, are kept safe. It's in charge of sending out all the orders and making sure the whole city is running just the way it's supposed to. Simple as that. No nucleus, no control. Every city has to have a border, right? And for our cell, that border is the cell membrane. It's this super thin, flexible layer that wraps around the entire cell. And its job is absolutely crucial. It's the gatekeeper. It controls exactly what gets to come in, like food and water, and what has to go out, like waste products. So yeah, you can think of the cell membrane as the city's border control. It's got security checks and everything. It doesn't just let anything wander in and out. It's what we call selectively permeable, which is just a fancy way of saying it's a very picky gatekeeper, managing all the city's imports and exports. Okay, no city can run without power. And inside the cell, that power is generated by these amazing organelles called mitochondria. This is where aerobic respiration happens. And all that is really is a super efficient chemical reaction that takes glucose, sugar basically, and turns it into a special energy molecule called ATP that the cell can actually use, which makes mitochondria the power plants of our city. They are working 24/7, converting fuel into usable electricity or energy to keep all the lights on and all the factories running. It's why cells that do a lot of work, like your muscle cells, are absolutely packed with thousands of these things. And finally, any good city needs to make stuff. In a cell, one of the main products is protein, and it's a real team effort. First, you've got ribosomes. They're like tiny little factories that actually build the proteins. Then, the endoplasmic reticulum acts like a highway system, transporting these brand new proteins around. And last, the Golgi apparatus is the city's postal service. It packages the proteins up and ships them out to wherever they need to go. Okay, so we've got the basics down. We know the essential infrastructure that pretty much all of these cellular cities have. But now, this is where it gets really interesting. We're going to see how that basic blueprint gets adapted into two very different, highly specialized kinds of cells: plant cells and animal cells. And this right here is the #1 difference between them. At their core, plant cells are built for strength and support, which gives them this really rigid structure. Animal cells, on the other hand, are all about flexibility and movement. And this one key difference in their design explains almost everything else about them. Let's start by exploring the plant cell. Think of it like a fortified castle or a self-sufficient factory. It's designed to stay in one spot and make everything it needs right there, on site. So plant cells have 3 amazing features that you just won't find in animal cells. First, on the very outside, they have a super tough cell wall made of something called cellulose.
This is for serious structural support. Second, they have a massive, large central vacuole. It's basically a giant water-filled sac that pushes against the cell wall and keeps the cell firm. And third, the real game changer, chloroplasts. These are the little green machines that make photosynthesis happen. So how do these chloroplasts actually work? Well, it's an incredible process. They contain a green pigment, chlorophyll, which is amazing at soaking up sunlight. They then use that solar energy to power a reaction that combines carbon dioxide and water and turns it into glucose. And that glucose is the plant's food. They literally make their own food from sunlight. It's amazing.
All right, time to switch gears. Let's head over to the animal cell. If a plant cell is a stationary factory, then an animal cell is more like a flexible, mobile hunter-gatherer designed to move around and find its resources.
Animal cells are interesting because they're partly defined by what they don't have. Not having a cell wall is a huge deal. It's what allows them to be flexible, to change shape, to move around. Think about a muscle cell contracting. They also have a specialized cleaning crew called lysosomes, which are little sacs of enzymes that break down waste or foreign invaders. And finally, they have centrioles, which are these small structures that are really important when it comes time for the cell to divide. So we've seen all the different parts in each city. But so what? Why are they different? Well, it all comes down to the big picture of survival. In biology, structure is always linked to function. This slide is basically your ultimate revision guide. Let's just run through it really quickly. A cell wall? Yes, for plants, which is why they have a fixed, boxy shape. No, for animals, which lets them be flexible and have irregular shapes. Chloroplasts, for making food? That's a big yes for plants and a hard no for animals. A vacuole? Plants have that one huge central one to stay rigid. Animals might have little temporary ones, if any. And centrioles for cell division? Yep, you'll find those in animal cells, but they're almost never in plant cells. So here's the main takeaway. Plants are stationary. They don't move. They need to be strong to stand up against gravity, and they need to make their own food. Their cell wall, their huge vacuole, their chloroplasts, they are all perfectly designed for that lifestyle. Animals, on the other hand, have to move. They need to find food, run from predators, you name it. Their flexible cells, without that rigid wall, are perfectly designed for their mobile lifestyle. The cells are literally built for the job. And that just about wraps up our tour. But I'll leave you with one final thing to think about. If you could be a bioengineer for a day, what kind of hybrid cell would you create? Would you give an animal cell chloroplast so it can photosynthesize? Or maybe give a plant cell the flexibility to move? The possibilities are pretty cool to think about. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.